शिवोऽहं 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 शिवोऽहं
वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ
Namaste and welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam, KYG as we all know it. It gives Maya and I greatest privilege and pleasure in welcoming each and every one of you on this auspicious occasion of the new year. Blessed beginnings. Blessed beginnings. This is the time in the year when the sun enters the zodiac sign of Aries. And as per the Vedic astrology, the oldest known method of calculating time and in relation with movements of the celestial bodies in the cosmos, the zodiac signs are 12, and when sun enters Aries, they mark that as the beginning of yet another journey through the 12 zodiac signs. Why Aries? Because when sun enters Aries, he begins to shine at his brightest. Now, for those of us in North America, this may not seem right, because we still have cold rain here, and we are barely touching 5 degrees or 10 degrees centigrade yet. We're getting better by the day, though. Nevertheless, in India and in the tropics, this is not the case. This is when summer is at its peak. But even in North America, this is the beginning of spring. That's why we celebrate Easter as well. And therefore, it is the time of the energy of the sun. Sun represents everything for us, right? It is the very source of life on this planet, Earth. And therefore, when the sun shines at his brightest, it means he is at his most powerful state. And so we celebrate the new year at that time. Now, this date would change in different parts of the country because of the way they calculate and the way they have traditions that are set up, which are developed over, these kind of things have lasted for so many thousands of years. It is bound to happen that different traditions come. So some parts of India follow by the lunar calendar, and so they would have celebrated this new year 2 weeks earlier. And some parts of India celebrate it from today. In Tamil Nadu, from where I come from, we celebrate it today. It's called Tamil Puttandu. It's a holiday, state holiday, and there's celebrations all over. The idea is to celebrate the cosmic event that is happening, and to once again remind ourselves that we are part of this cosmos and how important the sun is. How to celebrate and all of this is everyone's tradition. So I'm not going to get into that in this satsang because it's really immaterial. Even in Tamil Nadu, there are different traditions of how to set it and what kind of lamps you light. And, there is Kanni before, and in Kerala, there is Vishu and so on. So all of this depends on each state, each tradition, each family has their own way of celebrating it. So for those of you who are participating in the satsang, thank you for coming and Happy New Year. With this, we complete all of India now joins in this New Year cycle, because whether it is 2 weeks or a week before or now, depending on how they calculate, right now, with this 13th of April, or 14th of April rather, which is 14th in India, but 13th now because in North America right now, we are doing this satsang because even as we speak, the sun is entering the Aries. So it will be perhaps at 11:30 p.m. tonight that sun will complete his transition into Aries. Mesha Shankaranti it is called. Shankaranti means the transition of sun from one zodiac to another. Right? And therefore, this is Mesha Sankranti. Mesha Sankranti is, Mesha is Aries. So sun's transition into Aries. So for those of you in India, you've begun this wonderful day with the sun at its brightest. And it is my ardent prayer that this divine energy of the sun continues to shine his radiance, his brilliance, not only upon our bodies, bringing about health and vitality, but also illuminate our mind and our spirits so that we can continue to be in the lap of the divine. As you can see, Maya has not spared any effort in putting up a very beautiful altar. There is a season of tulips here in North America. So we went berserk, getting a lot of tulips for the altar to celebrate this particular occasion. So welcome once again to you all. And may this year guide us as every year has guided us. The name of this year is Shubhakrit. Shubhakrit. Shubhakrit is the year that will bring auspiciousness. It is a very beautiful name, a very auspicious name. Never mind what is happening in the world, in the political situations or the wars that is taking place. Shubhakrit applies to every individual. Make your life an auspicious one. Set goals so that your life begins on this auspicious path. And if each and every individual does that, then the community, the world, the nations, all of that will automatically fall in place. So let us all in our heart pray for auspiciousness, will in the depths of our consciousness, that every individual be suffused with this auspicious beginnings. Every mind, every heart, every soul experience a sense of peace, abundance, joy, and above all, love and unity. And so with this prayer and these words, let us begin our satsang today. Now, I am sure many of you would have been taken by surprise when I said, posted on the stream, Kala Bhairavashtakam. Wait a minute, where did this come from? Kala Bhairavashtakam. No one saw that coming. And guess what? I certainly did not see that coming until 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I'll come to that in a little bit. Nevertheless, what we want to at KYG introduce you to a beautiful sadhana. Sadhana is practice. Sadhana is a Sanskrit word for practice. Abhyasa is also a word for practice. Now, in the last 3 or 4 months, I had received a lot of messages and emails about how consistent should we be at a practice. We carry a practice for some time, and then it feels like it's lost its energy, and we're not interested in it anymore. Should we continue to keep doing it, and so on and so forth. It was not 1 or 2 people, but quite a few people had asked me. This is one practice which is for a set period of time. So rather than take up, here's a tip for some of you who have asked me that question, or some of you may be going through that experience and may not have asked me that question. The idea here, as was practiced in the olden days, is when you take up any practice, tell yourself, I will do this for 48 days, or I will do it for 96 days. 48 days is one cycle, right? A muhurta is 48 minutes. A cycle is 48 days. 48 days or 96 days. All right, if that seems too complicated, just say 2 months I will do it, or 3 months I will do that. And so when you practice something for 96 days, it doesn't seem like it's forever. And therefore you say, all right, at the end of 96 days, I will bring this practice to an end. And then if you so like it, you begin another one. You can start with small, you can say 1 week, you can start with 2 weeks, you can start with 1 month. Rather than start something thinking it'll go on forever. So that's something you could think about. So as I was contemplating on that as well, Kala Bhairavashtakam seemed to fit the bill. Because this is a sadhana, a practice, a learning that we will detail out in today's sadhana, which is time bound in that sense. Till you learn these verses, you're going to be practicing this sadhana. Once you learn it and memorize it and it's all part of you, then you can chant it once in a while because you would know it by now. And you just have to keep up the chant once a week, once in 2 weeks or so, and so on. So when you take up sadhanas like these, then you feel a sense of fulfillment, a sense of connection, a sense of motivation, and then you feel like, I want to do some more. So what is the catch in these? It sounds nice, right? 1 month, 2 months sadhanas. It sounds good. What is the catch? The catch is when you take up sadhanas with like these, or spiritual practices like these, then you give all your best into it. Put all your effort into it. You don't spare any effort. because you know it is going to be for just 60 days. So put all your effort into it. In other words, mind, body, spirit, all kinds of discipline and everything that's required for it. You don't compromise on that, on the quality of that sadhana. So as we explain Kala Bhairavashtakam and the way I'm suggesting that you all participate, and I hope you do, the idea here, you will understand what it is when you do a time-bound sadhana, then how one could do it. So Kala Bhairavashtakam, what does that mean? Let's take the first word, Kala. Kala is time. Time. One of the reasons why we thought we will start it today on the Tamil New Year, Hindu New Year, if you will, on this auspicious beginnings where the sun is at its brightest, is because this occasion is about time. Right? New Year is all about time, correct? Calendar is all about time. Days, weeks, months, years. So we are celebrating a new year. And therefore, it is about time. So there is no other better time than to introduce something like this or begin some practice like this. That could perhaps take 15 minutes a day of your time. Right? A great way to begin the year. You don't have to continue it throughout the year. That's my point. That's why sadhanas like this are shorter in length. Say, all right, I'm going to start this and I'm going to stop it. It would perhaps take 30 days, 40 days, 50 days, 60 days, depending on how fast you can learn this. But once you learn it, you have completed that sadhana. More importantly, you have begun the year in a very powerful, auspicious manner. And it is in accordance with the movement of the sun, and the sun himself is at his brightest and the most powerful. Sun represents the jiva in us. For the lack of any other word, I'm going to use the word soul. The soul in us. The one that says I at this point. That jiva is represented by the sun. So that jiva becomes powerful, stronger, and he in the sense the soul, carries on its journey towards God realization, self-realization, because the soul has to realize that it is the one that has created the universe. The Atma has to realize, the Jiva has to realize it is the Atma, and the Atma becomes the Paramatma, and so on. So the Jiva is energized by the sun. So what better way than to begin the Kala Bhairavashtakam? Kala is time. Bhairava. Now the word Bhairava, and in fact Kala Bhairava itself, if you go into the internet, you might come back more scared, more afraid, and say, no, I don't want to get into this at all. This is all some weird energy. I don't want all this. Please, my dear brothers and sisters, do not defile your mind with such thoughts. It's dramatic for somebody to post things like that, or you see videos and all of that. The truth is far, 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 far different. What does Bhairava mean? Bhairava is popularly translated as fears, as terrible, as fearful, and all of that. That could be a technical meaning of Bhairava, but Kala Bhairava is not that. So I have consciously used this word ruthless. Ruthless. Now that doesn't really, it's not a comforting word, right? But look at time. Is time kind to you? Is time loving to you? In the sense, time will say, oh no, you know what? I know you are not keeping up with the speed, so I will slow down for you. Does time do that? It doesn't. Time waits, time and tide waits for no man, there is a saying, right? So time is ruthless. Ruthless is the right translation for Bhairava. It is an energy. The time we are worshipping time as this energy. We are tuning into this energy called time. The secret of creation can be understood if you understand the Kala Bhairava aspect, if you meditate on the Kala Bhairava aspect. Why? Because all of us, unfortunately, well, of course, there are exceptions, so pardon me. Most of us, almost all of us, cannot control time, do not have faintest idea how to control time, how to even tune into time, how to be mindful of time. We are, to some extent, we do discipline and we get up at the right time and we eat at the right time and all of that. Those are very superficial attempts to understand time. For the most part, and I'm sure you all will agree with me, for the most part, we take time for granted. We take time for granted. A day passes, we'll say we'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll do it later sometime. Now is the time for me to enjoy life. I will do all this discipline and all that later in life. And before you realize, you're too old to practice. What happened? Time ruthlessly went by, not waiting for you to catch up. So we have to understand time, worship time, tune into time reverentially so that time begins to yield to us. Now, how does that happen? It is all a matter of perspective, and that perspective changes in us. Let me give you a small example. If I say 500 years, 400 years are but milliseconds, you will say, wait, what? Right? How can 400 years, or let's say last 400 years, the 400 years is just 4 milliseconds. Can you not focus on 4 milliseconds? Can you not hold your breath for 4 milliseconds? Can you not meditate for 4 milliseconds? You can meditate for 4 milliseconds, but 400 years? And to say 400 years is 4 milliseconds, how does that make sense? Matter of perspective. In the evolution of human beings, millions of years have passed, right? And in those millions of years, the last 400 years are actually just 4 milliseconds in terms of time. We have evolved for millions of years, and whatever we have experienced in the last 400 years is like 4 milliseconds. It could be 4, 5, 3. Okay, I'm not being technically correct here, but then it's more or less true. So it's about 4 or let's say 5 milliseconds. That's all it is. So when you go back and away from time, you will notice that the time that you thought is large can be brought down to a minute point. And that point you can bring under control. That is the secret of time. We have taken it for granted. We don't even think about these things. But Kala Bhairavashtakam, the study of this, the getting into this, worshipping this, tuning into this, time will yield that kind of knowledge. Where that 1 second meditation or 10 seconds meditation or the 11 seconds samadhi will lead you to liberation. That 11 seconds, what is that 11 seconds? That 11 seconds slows down for you. You will be able to escape into that 1 second and hold time still. It is not a complete foreign experience. Now, as I'm talking and I'm explaining it to you rather not in a very great manner, but nevertheless, because this is a very abstract concept. But I want to relate it with our everyday experience. When you are watching a very interesting movie, does 3 hours seem like, let's say, 10 minutes? It does, right? Before you know, the movie is over. When you're enjoying something so much, you're so caught up in the moment that time seems to change its pattern of behavior. Something you like, time can go faster, time can go slower, and there are times when time stands still. There are moments, you have experienced it, when time has stood still for you in your consciousness. You didn't know how time passed. When we were sitting at Swami's feet, oftentimes I've experienced that. When you sit at his feet, and by Swami I mean my beloved Guru, Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba, sitting at his feet, pressing his feet, looking up, and he's talking to you. Everything else seems still. Nothing seems to exist. And it's almost like it could be a 5-minute talk, a 10-minute talk, a 30-minute talk, but it could be so much of information has gone in at that time. So much of information that it could have taken 10 years to absorb that kind of knowledge and wisdom and information and motivation. So there was so much condensed in that 10 minutes and given, which would have otherwise taken 10 years. So 10 years was condensed in 10 minutes. So there are moments like this you would have experienced as well. So that is the secret of time. But it comes and goes, right? We don't have control over that time. We don't have time. We are not in tune with that energy. And therefore, we worship this divine energy. Because why do we create a form, Kala Bhairava, give a name and all that? Because that is the way our brain can communicate. That is the way that we can create an emotion and communicate to that very energy. Right? So we have a form, and therefore we can relate to something with a form. However bizarre that form can be, but we can tune into that. Otherwise it becomes too abstract, and after a point the mind just gives up. And therefore, Kala Bhairava, the energy of time has manifested into this name and form called Kala Bhairava, which was discovered by the yogis and rishis. Now, this is not some clever people saying, all right, let's help people control time. No, this is a cosmic energy manifested itself in this form of Kala Bhairava. So you and I can do a sadhana, a practice, and tune through this energy, go into the very secret of time itself. Without time, there is no space. Without time and space, there is no creation. So we need to get back to that self, the self-realization, God-realization, and one with Sai, and one with the Christ, and one with God, and all of that. We need to understand. We need to tune into this divine, beautiful energy, which seems ruthless. As we go into these verses and understand the meaning, it's a very beautiful energy. You will begin to respect the energy. The word Bhairava was used, so you first learn to respect that energy. Because we take it for granted, we need to respect. I sleep whenever I want. I eat whenever I want. I do whatever and whenever I want. We think that is freedom. That is taking time for granted. Because when it comes back to you in the form of disease or something, old age as we call it, and all of that, then your eyes open and say, oh my God, what did I do with my life? How can I rectify these things? What can I do? Right? And therefore we have to understand why not take these steps and incorporate this into our spiritual practice. Ashtakam. Kala Bhairava Ashtakam. Ashtakam is 8 verses. Ashta is 8. Ashtakam is 8 verses. We are worshipping, we are tuning into Kala Bhairava, this energy, through this composition, through this chant, which is in the form of 8 verses. Okay? So that is what is the meaning of Kala Bhairava Ashtakam. Bhairava and Ashtakam is joined, so it becomes Bhairavashtakam. Bhairava Ashtakam becomes Bhairavashtakam. Kala Bhairavashtakam. So we are going to tune and learn and worship time. My dear brothers and sisters, I know it sounds very hard and very abstract for me to try and sell this idea to you, at least in my mind. But I want to tell you the other side of it, which seems bizarre. But then the energy of Kala Bhairava is so divine. When it begins to manifest in your life, it is the most amazing experience. You suddenly seem to have time for anything and everything that you want to do. There is always no doubt about it. And you will be guided at the right time, at the right place. The guidance will come because time begins to come in your favor in that sense. You are in tune with time, time is in tune with you. And you will be able to foresee a lot of things at an unconscious, subconscious level, so that when the time is right, the manifestation also happens correctly. So there is a lot of divinity, there's a lot of power and potency in this beautiful composition. Who was the one who composed this? Who else? None other than Sri Adi Shankara, the greatest intellectual genius, the greatest yogi, the greatest saint or a sage, if you will, that India has ever known. In a short span, he composed so much knowledge, so much wisdom that he has given us. And none of these are simply poetic compositions. They have a great amount of poetry and beauty and rhythm and all of that. But inherent in that poetry lies powerful mantras, lies powerful energies that will actually open the doors in your brain, in the neurons, in the nervous system, open those doors to create that experience, that this particular energy is worshipped through those verses, that the composition is not just poetic, but it is a powerfully spiritual, potent composition. So it is with that due respect and deep belief and faith that we begin this journey of Kala Bhairavashtakam on this auspicious day of the Tamil New Year. All right, I know there is an elephant in the room and I need to address it. Kala Bhairavashtakam. I know many of you must have thought, and I did get a couple of emails and a couple of messages as well. Wait a minute, you were teaching Devi Khadgamala. What happened to Devi Khadgamala? We did 40 odd classes. We are about to launch into the fourth dimension, or the fourth gate, fourth avarana, if you will. And then now you're starting Kala Bhairavashtakam. When are you going to restart Devi Khadgamala? It might seem that there is no connection, and it might seem that it was a random act. It isn't, my dear brothers and sisters, it isn't. This entire concept of KYG, this whole aspect of Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam, we are in this because of service. And everything I do, I try to tune in and pray and meditate deeply before launching it. So Devi Khadgamala is at a stage where we are entering the triangles. It's a very powerful, potent stage. And what happened was, it seemed that the cosmos wanted us to take a break. I didn't get that message at that point, but it seemed like that. Why? Because somebody left her job and something happened at her job, and so she had to really focus and spend many hours more than she normally would have. And in the last, from mid-December until end of March, until last week, she has been working so hard, it's almost unbelievable. But that point was, so it almost came to a point where the cosmic energy, Devi was saying, hang on, wait a minute, I need to do some homework in order to prepare to even teach this. I didn't get it earlier, but every time I would open the slides and I would sit to prepare my notes, thinking we will find some time and we'll introduce at least one class a week and continue this. I don't want to stop it, because we are trained to do that, right? We are trained to start something and want to finish it off. Why are we waiting? Let's keep going. We are trained ourselves like that. But when you tune into the cosmic energies are guiding you. Sometimes you don't listen because we have our own agendas. But this time when I sat, my mind would be completely closed. I had no energy. I had no thoughts would even flow in that direction. And it took me by surprise. And therefore, when 2 or 3 weeks ago, when Maya was just finishing up a tight work, I told her, we have to go to India, even if it's for a week. We need to go to Adi Kamakshi temple in Kanchipuram, sit at her presence, and I want to tune into this energy and seek permission to once again restart Khadgamala. So we took that short time. We went to Kanchipuram because that's where my in-laws are, and so that's a place of 1,000 temples. So we went and sat there and I prayed and everything happened. It didn't click with me still. Nothing happened, nothing that my heart was still seemed to be closed. There was something beautiful waiting to happen. I didn't know what it was. Anyway, I want to cut the long story short. I visited Lakshmi Narasimha temple. There is another beautiful temple on top of a small hill, just on the outskirts of Kanchipuram, overlooking the river Palar. It's a very beautiful, beautiful, ancient, old. All these are thousands of years old. None of them are built in the last 100 or 200 years. So I've never been to a Narasimha temple. I've never been drawn to that energy for whatever reason. But suddenly that door opened and I felt very compelled to go and visit. I always thought Narasimha is fierce and I don't want that fierce energy. I just want to meditate on peace and love. I don't want that half man, half lion and all of that. But then when this door opened, I felt drawn. And I go to temples only when I'm drawn internally. I don't go it because I've marked it on my calendar. That's not the way I do it. So I told Maya, let's do it. Let's go. And we went. And it was a very small temple and there was just us. And when I stood in front of that huge statue, a gigantic statue, it is about at least 5 to 6 feet high and 3-4 feet broad, and Narasimha, half man, half lion, is sitting, and he has the goddess of abundance, prosperity on his lap. There was a tremendous sense of peace that descended, which is inexplicable, something I never expected. And in that presence, we had organized a small puja. So as the priest was chanting and as I was tuning in and completely just in tune with that energy and completely in love with that energy, because it was something I never expected. There was so much of love, so much of warmth and so much of grace there in that presence. So as I was experiencing that, I can relate to them because these are very similar to what I experienced in the presence of Bhagavan, Sri Satya Sai Baba. And so it just takes me back in that same memory. So I almost feel I'm in the presence of Swami himself. That doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, it's the most amazing experience. And nothing can shake that faith and experience from within. When that happened, then this name out of the blue, in the presence of Lakshmi Narasimha, in that temple, in the sanctum sanctorum, this name, Kala Bhairavashtakam, dropped on my lap. And then I realized I have to understand Kala Bhairavashtakam, practice Kala Bhairavashtakam in order to proceed with Devi Khadgamala. When I came back and I began to read on Kala Bhairavashtakam, I've learned this before, but I had to reopen that chapter. When I reopened that chapter of Kala Bhairava and I read those verses, then the Devi Khadgamala, she opened the doors suddenly and the energies just began to flow. I mean, these are also very personal and subjective, if you will, private experiences, but there is no other way I can share these other than just saying as is. Because I cannot take up a subject, a study, and then say, all right, we just going to keep going. I can't do that because what I share is from the heart. And I tune into these energies. I pray for them to guide. And I feel very, very guided, just like at this point, feeling guided to do the Kala Bhairavashtakam. So we will do this simultaneously. I'm not going to finish the whole Kala Bhairavashtakam and then begin Devi Khadgamala. Devi Khadgamala, we will begin from next week because that door she has opened now. She said, go ahead now. But then we will do this simultaneously because these lessons in Kala Bhairavashtakam is not going to be online. In the sense, it's not going to be a live program. I'm going to record it separately because they are short sessions. And then we will upload it and you can learn it and practice it at your own pace and we'll discuss about that. But Devi Khadgamala, we will continue from next week. So that is the relation between Kala Bhairavashtakam and Devi Khadgamala. Also, Ashtakam, 8 verses of Bhairava. There are 8 Bhairavas. And so each verse is dedicated to each of those Bhairavas. 8 Bhairavas, one way of relating to this, an easy way to understand is the 8 directions. From 8 directions, time comes to us, right? So time comes from all over. Time exists all around. Time is an omnipresent, omnipotent energy. So from the east, there is an element of time. From southeast, from south, from southwest, from west, from northwest, from north, from northeast. All of these 8, 4 ordinal and 4 cardinal directions, time comes to us. And may that time that comes to us from all these directions, may they be beneficial to us. So we tune into that energy, live a life of very devout, and therefore this time begins to flow as divine grace into our life. It is, you have to practice it to experience the beauty of what I'm talking about. Interestingly, the 8 Bhairavas have Shaktis. Each of those Bhairavas are just Shiva energy, right? That is just an energy, but the Shakti has to manifest that energy and flow into us. And that Shakti, 8 of those Shaktis are the 8 deities that we first learned in the first gate of Khadgamala. Vaishnavi, Kaumari, Mahendri, Mahalakshmi, Chandi, Chamundi, and all of that. So all of them are that 8 energies are the consorts of these 8 Bhairavas. We will learn as we proceed into this a little more in detail. So it is not entirely out of context with Devi Khadgamala. Devi is saying, first appreciate my energies from all 8 directions as you're continuing the study. Because this gate that we're entering now in Devi Khadgamala is about triangles, and that speeds up our learning. It will awaken a different kind of energy in us as we continue to learn that divine, most powerful and most beautiful sloka. So I express my greatest gratitude to the divine for having guided me, and through me for allowing me to share these with you all. So we all stay in this path of spirituality, completely guided by the divine. Okay, so what is this composition about? We talked about it. It is about Kala, the time, tuning into the time, worshipping the time, and allowing that divine time to come to us in a manner that we can experience life. You see, there are certain events in our life which can be, they say akala. Akala means, kala is in time. Akala is out of time. Something happens out of time. So there are possibilities for those events to happen. When we tune into energies of Kala Bhairavashtakam, those kind of sudden, unfortunate events have no place. They have no place. Because you will tune into the divine orchestration. Your thoughts, your words, and your deeds and actions and all will begin to be in tune. And therefore, everything that happens in your life will be divinely orchestrated for your highest benefit. You will begin to appreciate that. There will be nothing like akala, sudden. All right? So this is the powerful, this is why this composition is powerful. And this is also why it is regarded as a very potent chant, a very potent chant, because of this, the ability to ward off, I'm saying this within quotes, ward off evil, ward off unfortunate circumstances, ward off unforeseen circumstances, ward off sudden things that can happen, which can cause harm to us physically, mentally, and spiritually. It wards it off. It keeps it away. Why? Because you are in tune with this energy. That is important, correct? So we are learning how to tune into this energy. That is what the sadhana is all about. There is no God waiting for you in the sense you'll get angry if you stop it halfway, or angry. Those kind of things don't really exist. There is no God waiting to punish you. Everything is only love, 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 love. We are tuning into this energy of love that expresses itself as time. And that time appears ruthless. Sometimes your father, when you were growing up, your father was strict, or your mother was strict, right? Or you had teachers who were very strict. They seemed ruthless. But that didn't mean they don't love you. There is love behind that ruthless. Right now it's spring here, so we are pruning the rose plants in the garden. So when we prune it, it seems, oh my gosh, you're cutting the plants just when they are supposed to grow, but that's the best time to prune it, so that they might grow even better. So an act might superficially seem ruthless, but there is a lot of divinity, a lot of love, a lot of grace behind this energy Kala Bhairavashtakam. So please, my dear brothers and sisters, don't be afraid of this energy. For those of you who know this, if you're from the West and you're open-minded, then it's very easy for you to embrace this. But if you're from India and you've heard of Kala Bhairava, and Bhairava is a very angry energy, we don't want to worship him in our home and this and that, all those are based on fear. They have no basis in our tradition. Okay, let's go to the next one. There are three essential components. This might be a little longer satsang, please bear with me. But we'll come to, now we'll take one point after the other. How do we learn this chant? This sadhana. This sadhana is about learning this chant, 8 verses, right? How do we learn this verse? What is the right way to learn this verse? There are 3 essential components to learn Kala Bhairavashtakam. Each chant, as written by Adi Shankara or anybody, there is a way to learn it, there is a way to chant it, there is a way to practice it. It's composed in a certain particular meter and all of that. So we take advantage of all of that. And I'll also touch upon a little bit of science for those of you who are a little critical in your approach, and I'll explain to you why we are adopting this approach. The first thing is, in this essential components of learning, is movement. You learn while moving. You learn while moving. Why? Because time doesn't stop. Time is constantly moving. The energy of Shiva is both still and moving. The Shakti part of it and Shiva, that is what the Ardhanadishwara, the dance of Shiva, the Nataraja, the Tandava, or the Kala Bhairava, all of these are energies in motion, which is moving and still. We have to understand the moving, because that movement is what creates what we see around us. This is Shiva in motion. This is the Tandava that you look around you. Every being, every atom, every molecule is the dance of Shiva, which is the highest consciousness. So when you want to tune into this energy of time, you move like time, like a pendulum, constantly moving. Then you become aware of time. Also, this particular chant is composed so beautifully that when you learn it with moving, it puts you in a trance-like state. It is an amazing experience. You will fall in love with that practice, hopefully. And I'm hoping to do justice to this. The next thing is learn. We have to learn this properly, how to chant it, how to pronounce these, because there are inherent mantras. This is composed by none other than Adi Shankara himself, an enlightened soul. So there are inherent mantras, how to chant it, and what are the meaning of these words. So it's called cognition, comprehension, understanding, however you want to term it. That is part of the learning. Now, there are many YouTube videos which has Kala Bhairavashtakam. Now you can play it on YouTube and say, every morning we play Kala Bhairavashtakam. Is that not enough? No, that's not enough at all. That does nothing. Because it's by the way. If you want to tune into this energy of time, you have to do this. So it becomes a spiritual practice. So we move and we learn. We move and we learn. That is the best way to learn this, not by sitting still. Okay, that energy that is released with that is an amazing experience, which I hope you will experience as well. And the third essential component is memorize. You have to memorize. I know I dropped the ball right there. Right? Many of you will say, oh gosh, no way. Memorize. And I'll tell you how important this is, how powerful this is in terms of brain development and so on. But we'll come to that. Move, learn, memorize. These are the 3 important components of Kala Bhairavashtakam. This is how we are going to learn it. Okay? And of course, you're welcome to try a couple of classes and see if you can tune into all that you hear here now. So move, what is this movement we are talking about? What kind of movement should it be? What kind of movements? The first one is There are simple three parts of it. And all of this is just to give you an idea. The first is, it is rhythmic, methodical movement. It is important to understand it is a rhythmic movement. There is a beat to it. So there will be a beat, rhythm. The Damaru of Shiva is all about rhythm. Everything about Kala Bhairava is rhythm, 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 rhythm. The drum that he plays, the drum Nandi plays for him, all of these stories, it's very magical, trance-like method of worshipping time. Okay? So rhythm. Next is consistency or consistent rhythm. The rhythm is consistent. In other words, it's repetitive. Think of a pendulum in a clock. It just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And if you keep looking at it for a while, you can get into a self-hypnotic state. Have you tried that? Try it, right? So you have this back and forth movement. So rhythmic and consistent. It's consistent and repetitive. This is the kind of movement we're going to do. And the third thing is, it is going to be dance-like. However, it's not a dance. I'm not teaching you a dance. So don't tell, oh gosh, I don't want to get into this dance and all of that. I don't know, I'm not good at it. It is nothing. It is simply moving with your feet rhythmically, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That is the whole point here, not to complicate it. Because time is very simple. You have to tune into that energy, simple movement, right? And you're learning. So if you complicate the movements, then you get distracted from learning. So that is why. This is dance-like movement. There is an element of little grace in it, if you want to add to it, but it's just moving back and forth, rhythmically consistent. All right. The next one is learn, right? We did move, then we come to learn. So what kind of learning are we talking about? Again, here, the learning is systematic. The learning is systematic. In other words, one line at a time, one word at a time, one line at a time. I have to learn the word, the meaning. First of all, learn it, pronounce it, memorize it, and in the course of doing that, understand the meaning, right? So I have to, each and every word, each and every syllable is learned methodologically, systematically. If you can't proceed, then you go back and continue that. Till you learn that, don't go to the next line. Okay? Then comes repetitive. You have to go on repeating that line, repeating that line, repeating that line. Because it helps in the third stage of memory, right? But nevertheless, that is the way to learn this. Go on repeating, repeating, repeating. It becomes Namasmarana. So don't say it is boring. It's too much repetition. There's no too much repetition. Everything is a name there. Everything is, every syllable, every word there is a mantra. You go on repeating it. So you're not only learning the verse, there is a lot of energy that is being released within our consciousness that breaks the brain fog and all of that and clears our thinking. So repetitiveness is important in any of the mantra chants in Vedic knowledge, but then here it becomes all the more important. And then there is a song-like element to this. Now, I am not going to teach you in this song-like element because I know it's very difficult. You will have to sing along with me and it becomes a little more complicated. I will be speaking and you will be speaking it as well. But there is, because we are doing it, and I'll show you a small sample at the end, because we are going to do this in rhythm, there is an element of song-like. It's not song. I can't take and expound a raga and give very complicated turnings and exhibit my talent in music. No musician can do that in this particular thing because that's not the purpose of Kala Bhairavashtakam. The magic in Kala Bhairavashtakam, the potency of Kala Bhairavashtakam can be released when you follow these rules. Okay? Otherwise you miss the boat. Then it becomes like a chant like anything else, and the secrets that are hidden, the power that is hidden is not released. Right? So If we do have a raga, which eventually, once we finish learning, I will produce it. I've not really made up my mind. I'm waiting for guidance again. But then anything with Shiva has 5 letters. Namah Shivaya, right? Namah Shivaya. 5 elements, the 5 stages of consciousness, the 5 seats. 5 is the mystical number of this universe. 5 is the number of Shiva. And therefore, this Kala Bhairavashtakam has to be composed on ragas which have only 5 notes. For example, Sare Ma Pa Ni Pa Ma Re Sa, Sare Ma Pa Ni Sa Ni Pa Ma Re Sa, Sare Ma Pa Ni. 5. Sa, the Sa is getting repeated, right? Sare ma pa ni sa ni pa ma re sa. This is Revati. It's traditionally known to be favorite of Shiva. Bhasma bhushit anga sai chandra shekara. It's a beautiful composition. Bal bha phala netra shuladari sai shankara. Bhasma bhushitanga sai chandra shekhara. Samagana priyakara sai shankara. And thus it goes, right? So it's only 5 notes, going back and forth, modulations of those 5 notes. So if we can learn a simple tune in this, eventually it will be great. Or at least when you listen and you're chanting along, even if you're not singing along, it becomes song-like. So it's an important factor here. The simplicity is the key in this. The magic is in the simplicity of the whole thing. Simple movement, rigorous, repetitive manner of learning, and not getting into too much of a song and melody, but focused mainly on the balance of rhythm and melody. Then comes the last one, memorize. Memorize is the most crucial part in this whole sadhana, in this whole practice. You have to learn to memorize it. Let it take a whole year for you if you need to. Do it in bits and pieces if you need to, but memorize it. Memorize it. Every time you memorize it, it really goes deep into your psyche, and that energy gets released. In yogic terms and meditative terms, it is that the deities of those mantras become alive in us. They cannot become alive when we don't memorize something. Because when you memorize, now you're not referring to a book. You can sit with your eyes closed and tune into that energy and chant. The chant becomes 100,000 times more powerful than when you're reading from a book. Okay? So memorizing is very important. This is your homework. In a session, we will be doing that, and you're going to be later on practicing that line throughout the day and making sure you memorize it. How do we memorize this? By constant repetition. The more you repeat that line, the more easy it will come. You can break that line into different words. You catch at each word. There'll be one word that could be difficult for you to pronounce or remember. Try and link. So the two other points that I want to share is to learn the meaning, which will help you in memorizing it. And the next one is you link these lines through a story. A story forms in your head. So the first line is, for example, Deva Raja Sevyamana Pavanangri Pankajam. Now I know it sounds Greek and Latin to you, and that's perfectly okay. But Devaraj, who's Devaraj? Indra is Devaraj. So what is Indra doing here? Indra is worshipping. And so Indra is worshipping what? The lotus feet. So thus you understand the line, and then you'll form a story. And even Narada and other yogis and all of them are praying. To whom? To the Shiva who has a snake, has this sacred thread, who has the moon in his head. And so you are forming an imagination, a perfect picture, and before you realize, the first verse is already in your grasp. It's not as easy, but when we understand the meaning, we are able to link the one verse, one line to the other line, and you can form your own stories to help you remember that. What is memory? Memory is about linking things, right? It forms a pattern, a neural path in the brain. So that's what you're going to train to do that. Okay. So let me take a few moments to explain the science behind this. And I'm saying that because it's all these practices that were taught to us by the ancient sages and seers are not simply some random blind belief, meaningless things. When they told you to walk around the temple, do pradakshina and do all of that, there were meanings for every of that. So the science here, let's take the science, very simple. This has to do a lot with the development of the brain. When we talk of the sun energy, it's all about the brain. If something happens to this, then we are not able to function fully, right? Whether it is memory loss, or whether it is age, or whether it is dementia, whether it is autism, whether it is any of this, we seem to be not allowing the brain to function fully. So this practice has something to do that is very vital, that we all need to maintain in our brain. What is it? And the science that is coming up today is just 10 years old or even less than 10 years old. Okay. So the term I'm going to drop in your lap is this. It's called B.D.N.F. What is it? It's nothing else but brain-derived neurotropic factors. Brain-derived neurotropic factors. Now, what is that? Let me also give you a simple definition. These are simple, small, tiny protein-like substance, groups of them. And if they grow in size and they grow in number, and if you're doing practices that help them grow in number, they in turn will regulate the growth, survival of all the neurons in the brain. The neurons are the ones that connects. The neurons are the ones that help you with memory, with cognition, with learning, with smartness, and everything. Right? Mental disorders and all of this is looming upon us today. Depression and all of that. But almost all of that can be related to the chemicals in the brain, the structure of the brain, the capacity of the brain. Aging is a thing of the past, truly. With not only just yoga practice, but with practices like these, you will be able to regrow your brain. That's called neuroplasticity. This is why right in the time, the Vedic way of learning was only listening, focusing, and memorizing. Learn, memorize, learn, memorize, learn, memorize. In the course of that, you begin to understand the meaning as well. That kind of education is gone. Today we have everything has to be written to us, everything has to be drawn to us, like I'm presenting slides to you. We need that, right? So the ability of brain is already cut down by a lot. But it all is not lost. We can, at whatever age, even at the age of 80 and 70 and 85, you can regrow. The brain can grow back, can grow in size and literally create more B.D.N.F. The more B.D.N.F. we have, the more healthy our brain is. And all our spiritual practices, many spiritual practices, yogic practices, go towards developing the B.D.N.F. Okay? So therefore, we say we want to grow B.D.N.F. Okay, we talked about move, learn, and memorize. Now, how do we link the two? So, what helps the growth of B.D.N.F.? B.D.N.F., you know now, is brain-derived neurotropic factors, which is a very crucial thing among so many other things. I'm just taking a very simple thing from the little research that I've done. I said, all right, this is good enough for me to get interested in this practice. Okay, what is it that can grow? Number one is aerobic exercise, aerobic movement. Anything that you do aerobic in nature. Now these days you have high intensity interval training, you have walking, you have jogging, you have all kinds of aerobics exercises, right? Almost all of them, anything that involves movement, anything that can get your heart rate up to 100, 120, just a little slightly breathless, that's all you need to get that, will help in developing the brain. Okay, and if you can do more exercise and create intensity, like go for sprints and things like that, even better. But you don't need to go there. That's the fun part of it. That's the best part of it, right? So now you understand why they said go around the temple 3 times or 5 times. And these temples, these old temples are really a lot. So you do a lot of walking, your heart rate goes up, the brain is getting developed. So aerobic. That's why when they sit for meditation after doing pradakshina and all of that, the mind automatically tunes into that because the brain is in the right frame, the right dopamine and serotonin and all of that is released into the bloodstream and you feel a sense of high. Okay, some of you join me for yoga class, you know that at the end of the class you feel so nice and it's almost like a high state. It comes because of this kind of exercise. So aerobic exercise is good. The second one that will help in B.D.N.F, and this is not this or this, but all has to be important, all has to be there to really help the growth, correct? Is cognition. You have to continue to learn something or the other. Don't stop learning. Don't say, I'm too busy, I can't learn. So what happens is now, when we are adults, we just go to work, come back, and work is monotonous. Perhaps there's nothing new to learn, I guess. Some odd training comes once in a while, and it just helps you a little bit here and there, I guess. But if you're not really consciously, consistently learning something for the joy of it, then the brain stops growing. Just because you sit and you're with your phone and WhatsApp and your iPad and the whole day, that doesn't mean you're learning anything. You're just learning gossip. You're just participating in all kinds of forwards and you forward 100 things. That is not learning at all. Learning is, all right, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to memorize this. By the end of a week or 2 weeks, set a goal. If you don't meet it, that's fine. Just say, all right, it was a little difficult for me. Let me keep trying. But that trying is benefit because the very fact that you're trying, the B.D.N.F is growing, the brain is growing. And initially it might seem like a steep hill, but then the learning becomes easier. The comprehension becomes easier. All of this helps us in deep meditation as well. When I tell you about higher dimensions and how magic-like it is and what the experience is, I'm not just reading it from a book and sharing it, because when your brain begins to expand and the nervous system is able to absorb these energies, then there are so many more ways to experience life, so much more beauty that lies within us that we can experience. And therefore, we have to continue to learn and memorize, and therefore we included that in Kala Bhairavashtakam. And the third thing, I'm not getting into this right now, but you listen to this, and if you're interested, please share. Put your comments right now. I'll have Maya look at the comments and I'll check it out later. Fasting. Fasting improves the brain quality like none other. One of the greatest, now all the doctors worth their salt and who are in tune with the latest of research, they're going berserk over the idea of fasting. But it's not new to people like us who have been in this generations after generation. We don't know how to do it. How do we get into this fasting state? What is fasting state? How can you, if you are interested, I will slowly begin to share those videos as well. There's a lot for me to share. I'm excited, but I want to make sure there is interest for you all, because I want to combine science, yogic wisdom, and our ancient wisdom and bring it all together. You find very, very few videos that can do that. It's either only science, then you get drawn into, if you go into science, then you get drawn into too much of meat and too much of this and too much of that. It's one-sided, okay? But then we can bring both of them together and say, all right, what is the best thing that we can take out of here and relate to what our ancients have practiced? So fasting is bringing the gut and the brain connection. We always have known that. That is why before these pujas and for Shivratri and all of that, they do fasting, because the gut sends the microbiome in the gut and all of that sends the right signal to the brain, and the brain is in tune with what you want to do, and you experience what you set out to experience. So these are the three, among other factors, these are the three most important factors, not one or the other, but all of them together will be a very powerful means. And therefore, in this sadhana, during the concept of this learning, slowly begin to understand and incorporate a little bit of fasting. And I'll come to that in a few minutes. So we have aerobics and cognition, which reverses the aging of the brain. And then we have fasting, which reverses the aging of the body and the brain. Fasting is all around. But mainly the aging of the body. My dear brothers and sisters, trust me, I speak from experience. I'm sharing with you what the benefits that Maya and I have gained through this rigorous eating habits, bringing discipline into our eating habits, cutting off sugar and all of that. The medical reports that we see of our own bodies, and I'm 60, past 60, it's exactly what it was when I was 30. I weigh the same when I was 30. Nothing has changed. It seems like I can still do the same things that I did when I was 30. The reason is because of this kind of discipline. You begin to enjoy life. You begin to live a quality of life. I'm not talking about living 120 years. If that happens, fine. But what's the point in living 80 and 90 when you're sick, you can't do this, you can't do that. Let the last day of your life be the most productive day of your life. How wonderful that can be. What kind of a lovely legacy you can leave for your children. My parents were like that. I want to be like that. Right? My friend was like that. I want to be like that. That is the kind of thing that is very, very dear to my heart. And that's the kind of approach I'm going to take in all of these sadhanas. So what is this sadhana about finally? So let's get some certain things very simple and very clear before we bring the session to a close. So the first point is Kala Bhairavashtakam as 9 verses. I know, I said 8. 8 is the main, and the last one is the concluding verse. It's called the Falashruti. So what are the benefits of chanting these 8 is mentioned in those 4, just for a motivation for us to continue. So total 9 verses, okay? Each verse has 4 lines. So 9 into 4, total lines are 36. So it will be about 36 sessions is what we are going to do. Why? Because we're going to learn 1 line per session. It's 1 line per session. I'm not going to complicate it at all. We're going to repeat each word, 2 words at a time, then 3 words at a time, 4 words, and we complete that line and go on repeating, right? Now, I'm hoping that the session will be about 15 minutes or so. I don't want to make it too long or too short, but I think 15 minutes of gentle will also bring a little element of aerobic exercise into your being. So if you have a goal of 3,000 or 5,000 steps a day, you would perhaps do about 2,000 at least steps in this 15 minutes. I think, I don't know, we still have to record. A couple of times we tried, it didn't work out well. So we are still experimenting and we will do with it this weekend. So, and then the last 2 things I want to note is the session that we do consists of moving and learning. And then the homework is yours, that is memorizing. Because I cannot memorize for you, right? That's your homework. So what you learn on that particular day, whether you do it every day or every 2 days a week or whatever it is, because we won't be able to release it every day. So we will release perhaps 2 a week or 3 a week, I don't know. But as much as you do, so you move, you learn, and then as you walk, what was that line I was chanting today in that session? Just try and recollect it, memorize it. That's it. This is the sadhana. The most powerful chant we take, and then we make it that is in tune with this energy of Shiva. We begin to dance and move like Shiva. We chant his name, we tune into that energy, and puts us in that trance-like beautiful state when we open the doors for his grace to flow. Lastly, before I give you a sample and end the satsang, here are a few tips that I want to share with you. So the first one is practice with a friend. Better practice if you have a family, practice it as a family. If you have children, let's say, okay, 15 minutes. Maybe you can do it on a weekend, every weekend. I don't know. It's up to you. You plan it. Because children, many parents have written to me about ADHD or mild autism or social anxieties, or they're not able to concentrate, they're not able to focus, and this and that, or even sleep well and all of that. Everything, almost everything has to do with the brain and with the gut. So with the brain especially, if you encourage your children, not tell them go do this, but with them, make it fun, right? It's fun movement. Everybody moves together and learn together. It becomes a fun sadhana, a beautiful sadhana to practice with a friend or a family. The second one I would say is practice always, of course, on an empty stomach. Don't have a heavy meal and simply say, all right, I'm going to keep moving. It's not entirely wrong because this is very simple, But the learning capacity, the brain is in the interests of digestion. At that point, you say, I'm going to memorize something and learn something. You're going uphill, making it even more difficult. So practice on an empty stomach, because not only is it good for your body, but also the brain is now sharp. It's focused because it's looking for food. It's ready to eat. At that time, it's ready to listen. And therefore, that is the time you capture the brain and give it some food for its own consumption by way of learning and memorizing and chanting. The third one, of course, is a suggestion for you. If you want to truly, truly experience the benefit of Kala Bhairavashtakam, and especially the brain functioning better, please abstain from sugar. Complete. Say till I learn Kala Bhairavashtakam, no sugar. I'm not going to put sugar in my coffee, not sugar in my tea, no brown sugar, no white sugar, nothing. Avoid sugar. Sugar kills B.D.N.F. Sugar kills the brain-derived neurotropic factors. It will not. You will almost drop the efficacy of your practice by 80% or 70%. If at the end of a practice you're going to go and drink a sugary drink or coconut water or something, or eat fruits. Fruits, abstain from during this practice, simply because when I say eat fruits, fruits are good, people go and hog on fruits. No. When Baba would eat fruits, he would eat 3 or 4 pieces of watermelon. That's, if you can eat 1 or 2 pieces of watermelon or 1 or 2 pieces of apple, is different. But you can't have banana and apple and this and that. Too much fructose again goes into the system. So once again, that kills the effect of B.D.N.F. Fruits have to be had as medicine, and very, very, very rarely. But okay. So again, no jaggery, none of that. No sweet, just avoid it. Then it's not going to be easy. That's why the sadhana appears easy, the learning, memorizing, no sugar. But at least that. Forget about other carbs and other food. We will talk about that as I go along. Like I said, if you're interested in that fasting and concept and really building health for sadhana and to experience life fully, we'll talk about that slowly. But as a very first step, could you please try and abstain from sugar? At least try and reduce it by 50% the first week, and then reduce it by 70%, reduce by 90%, and then do away with it till you learn Kala Bhairavashtakam. At least that one step, okay? Because it will help. When I talked about B.D.N.F, it's a very important factor. We are so addicted to sugar now, we are in a state of denial. I've attended pujas where the energy is so high, and at the end of these pujas and rituals and ceremonies, only sweets are served. I mean, sweets and carbs and carbohydrates and sweets. It is poison completely. I know it sounds very harsh, but anyway, please abstain from sugar. Whether it is New Year or Old Year or marriage or birthday or whatever it is, avoid sugar. There are many, many beautiful ways. You can have heavy cream and a couple of fruits in it, fruit pieces in it if you want to really, really, really enjoy a treat. But all that can come slowly. First, learn to cut off sugar. That is the biggest drug and the biggest poison today that is ruining masses and wiping generations after generations. All right, next. Repeat the class until the line is clearly formed in the head. It has to be clear. Every single pronunciation, every single word has to be clearly formed in the head. Until that, repeat the class. Because like I said, it is Nama Smarana. It is the same mantra. So you're not losing anything by repeating a class. If you're doing it as a family, some children might be far ahead of you. Doesn't matter. Tell them to have patience and be with you. Ask them to teach you maybe. Let them be your teachers. Practice it, okay? And the last, of course, is patience and perseverance. No sadhana, however simple or however difficult, can succeed without patience, without perseverance. Shraddha and saburi, as Sai Baba would say. We need to have faith, we need to have patience, we need to have perseverance. If you can do this with one sadhana, you will benefit so much by this that you will be motivated to do the next one. And we can take up perhaps the Shiva Tandava Stotram, another dance-like, beautiful, powerful composition, once again tuning into the highest energy of the universe, the Shiva consciousness. So let me give you a very simple demo of what this beat is and how it will be. When you hear the chorus repeating, that means You repeat along, and then I sing it. I'm just going to give it to you just perhaps a minute or two to give you an idea of how this goes. Of course, I'm not going to be moving now, but just to give you how it sounds, how we're going to speak, we're not going to sing it. This is the beat. Kashika, 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 Kashika. What is Kashika? Kashi. That is Varanasi. Kashika, 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 Kashika. Pura, 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 not Pura. Pura, Pura means city. Kashika Pura, 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 Kashika Pura. Adhinath, Adhinath, eternal Lord. Adhinath, 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 Kashika Puradhinath, Kashika Puradhinath, Kashika Puradhinath, Kashika Puradhinath. And thus it will go. Kala Bhairavam Bhaje, Kala Bhairavam Bhaje, Kala Bhairavam Bhaje. Kashika Puradhinath Kala Bhairavam Bhaje, Kashika Puradhinath Kala Bhairavam Bhaje. Om Namah Shivaya, 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 Om Namah Shivaya. My dear brothers and sisters, I know we went longer than we originally planned, but I thought it's important for me to explain all of this so you have an idea and then you can decide whether you want to try this or not. This is how it can be fun, it can be beautiful, it can be powerful, it can be engaging. A sadhana doesn't have to be boring. A spiritual practice doesn't have to be boring. It could seem monotonous, but every day you're learning something new. The satisfaction that you're learning new will motivate you to come back to the next class. And at the end of it, you're going to be have learned one of the most beautiful and powerful compositions, the Kala Bhairavashtakam. May the divine Shiva, may the divine Sai, may the divine Shakti, Devi Mam, guide us in this beautiful and powerful practice. I hope and pray that you will like this practice and you will succeed in this practice. And may you succeed, may all of you succeed, and may the Shiva's energy, may the Kala Bhairava bring all bountiness, grace, revamp the time in your lives, and reprogram the time in such a way that there is prosperity, there is abundance, there is satisfaction, there is contentment, there is love, and there is happiness in your lives and in your family and in your home. Thank you so much for watching. Namaste. We shall end with Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. जय बोलो पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, सतगुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय। नमः पार्वती पतये हर हर महादेव। ओम शांति शांति शांति।